The look on Karen Whitmore's face when the sheriff handed her that eviction notice was worth every sleepless night she'd caused me over the last year and a half. There she stood, perfect hair, perfect blazer, that same ridiculous clipboard she carried everywhere, watching her empire crumble as she realized the man she'd been tormenting about paint colors was, in fact, her landlord. Her jaw dropped. Her hands trembled. Behind her, the other HOA board members shuffled awkwardly, avoiding my eyes. "This is impossible," she stammered. "You can't be the property owner." "I would have known. I'm the HOA president." I smiled, straightened my tie, and said, "Actually, Karen, if you'd ever bothered to check with the county assessor's office instead of obsessing over beige shades, you'd have known months ago." The sheriff cleared his throat. "Ma'am, you have 30 days to vacate the premises. This notice includes unpaid rent and associated fines." Karen's face turned bright red. "This is ridiculous. I was enforcing community standards." "Your job," I said, pulling up a video on my phone, "was not to stand in my driveway at 6 in the morning, screaming about property values while half the neighborhood recorded you." The clip showed her mid-rant, finger wagging, spit flying, shrieking about a shade too yellow. The best part? That color had been pre-approved 2 years earlier. The beginning of the war. Let me back up. 18 months earlier, I'd bought a house in Maplewood Estates, a gated community that promised reasonable HOA standards and peaceful living. My name's David Cole, and I work in commercial real estate law. So, when I bought my place, a cozy 3-bedroom ranch on a quiet cul-de-sac, I read everything, the CC and RS, the architectural guidelines, even the fine print about fence height. The house was painted warm cream, color number 12 on the HOA's approved palette. Perfectly compliant. 3 weeks after moving in, I got my first letter. "Your house color is in violation of HOA standards. You have 30 days to repaint or face fines of $50 per day." Signed, Karen Whitmore, HOA president. I called the number on the letter. She answered 3 hours later with that sharp, performative politeness people like her master. "Mr. Cole," she said, that yellow monstrosity on. "Your house is bringing down property values." "It's cream," I said. "Approved color number 12. I have the documentation signed by your committee." "I'm looking at it right now," she snapped. "It's yellow." I looked out the window. It wasn't. When I stepped outside, she was parked in her white Lexus SUV, clipboard in hand, glaring at my siding like it owed her money. "Mr. Cole," she said, marching up the driveway, "I've been protecting property values in this neighborhood for 5 years. That color is unacceptable." I pulled up the HOA website on my phone. "Here's your approved color. Palette. See. Warm cream. Color number 12. She squinted at the screen. "Lighting changes things. It's still too bright." Then she waved a dismissive hand. "Previous approvals can be revoked if found in error." "By the same committee you chair?" I asked. Her smile thinned. "You have 30 days to repaint. The clock starts now." Building my case. That night, I did what any lawyer would do. I started building a file. I copied every document, took photos, downloaded the HOA palette, and started logging every interaction with Karen. The next morning, I found a violation notice taped to my door claiming I'd received a verbal warning. That was lie number 1. When I called the HOA management company, the representative, Sandra Hill, sounded genuinely confused. "Mr. Cole, I'm looking at your file right now. The color was approved in 2021. There's no reason for this violation." 2 hours later, she called back, voice nervous now. "Mr. Cole, the president, insists the approval was given in error. Can you show me where in the bylaws it says approvals can be revoked?" I asked. Silence. "Then, I'll have to get back to you." She never did. A week later, a new letter arrived. The committee had voted unanimously to revoke my color approval. So I walked the neighborhood with my phone and a camera. I took pictures of every house. 6 were painted in unapproved colors. 3 were off-shade from the official list. 1, 2 blocks over, was painted the exact same cream as mine. When I knocked on that door, the owner, Charles Reynolds, laughed. "Karen asked me last week if your color looked too bright. I told her it's the same as mine. She said yours hasn't weathered properly." Charles shrugged. "She just needs an enemy. Always has." That weekend, I drafted a formal response. 3 pages long, fully cited, with exhibits. Sent it certified mail to both the HOA and management. 2 days later, Sandra called again. The board is moving forward with enforcement. You have 15 days to repaint or face daily fines. I realized then that logic wasn't going to work. I was dealing with a tyrant. Turning the tables, I started digging into the community's corporate structure. Turns out, Maplewood Estates was still partially owned by the original developer, Harbor Point Properties, who retained declarant rights, meaning they could override any HOA decisions. I called Harbor Point's office and explained everything. Their representative, Douglas Walker, sounded intrigued. Send me your documentation. An hour later, he called back. Mr. Cole, you're absolutely right. That paint color was approved. I have the original form. I'll take it from here. 3 days later, Harbor Point issued a formal letter ordering the HOA to cease all violation actions against me. I thought that would end it. It didn't. Karen called an emergency board meeting and pushed through a resolution declaring that Harbor Point had abandoned its rights, an act so legally meaningless it was almost funny. Douglas didn't find it funny. She just declared our contract null, he said. All right, we're filing suit. Within a week, Harbor Point's legal team sued the HOA for breach of contract, naming Karen personally. By Monday, a new HOA management company, Collins & Partners, contacted me. Mr. Cole, we've reviewed your file, said Joyce Collins, the senior manager. There was no basis for those fines. They've been canceled, and Ms. Whitmore has been removed as president. I finally exhaled. For the first time in months, peace. Or so I thought. The unraveling of Karen Whitmore. 3 days later, I woke up to find my car keyed, my mailbox knocked over, and a dozen signs in my yard reading neighborhood eyesore. I filed a police report. The officer sighed. Without proof, there's not much we can do. So I installed security cameras. Within a week, I had footage, crystal clear, of Karen spray painting the word eyesore across my fence at 2 a.m. When the police saw it, their tone changed instantly. This isn't just harassment, the officer said. This is stalking. 2 days later, Karen was arrested. In her garage, police found red spray paint matching the vandalism in a notebook. She'd been tracking me, my work hours, my visitors, even speculating about my income. It was chilling. Karen was charged with vandalism, harassment, and stalking, released on bail. And then, unbelievably, her attorney sent me a demand letter accusing me of defamation and emotional distress, asking for $25,000 in damages. But that letter exposed something else. Karen's business address, 1247 Maple Lane. My address. Confused, I checked property records, and that's when everything clicked. Through my law firm's real estate investment arm, Coleman Holdings, I owned several rentals in the area, including the house Karen Whitmore was renting. She had been paying rent to my property management company for 3 years without knowing it was mine, and she was 3 months behind on rent. The eviction. I called my property manager, Josh Nelson. Yeah, she's been late, he said. Claims her property management consulting business is waiting on a client payment. What client? She said the HOA. Of course she did. File eviction, I said. Lease violations and delinquency. The eviction notice was served the same day Karen appeared in court for her vandalism case. She pleaded no contest to harassment and criminal mischief. When she saw my name on the eviction notice, she completely lost it, ranting about conspiracies and corruption. She violated her restraining order by calling me that night, leaving a 10-minute voicemail about how I'd ruined her life. By the hearing date, she showed up with an attorney and a small army of supporters. The judge, Lionel Price, listened patiently for about 3 minutes before cutting her lawyer off. Counselor, he said, this is an eviction hearing. Your client is 3 months behind on rent. Is she current? Your Honor, there are extenuating circumstances. So that's a no, the judge said flatly. He reviewed the evidence, Karen's business registration, the photos, the restraining order, the criminal record. Then he looked up. Ms. Whitmore, you vandalized your landlord's property and stalked him. I'm granting the eviction. You have 10 days to vacate. Karen stood, shouting. He orchestrated all this. He bought that house just to harass me. Ma'am, the judge said, that's not how home buying works. Justice served. 10 days later, deputies arrived with a moving truck. Neighbors gathered quietly as they carried Karen's things to the curb. She screamed about corruption, about conspiracies, about yellow paint destroying lives. Charles Reynolds called out from his yard. Karen, my house is the same color as his. You approved it. That's different, she shrieked. The sheriff handed me the keys to her now vacant rental. It's all yours again, Mr. Cole. 18 months of hell, finally over. A week later, the new HOA board sent a formal apology and reimbursed my legal fees. And Karen? She moved in with her sister, and within weeks, got arrested again in her new neighborhood for trespassing and harassment. According to Officer Morales, the same cop who once doubted me, Karen was caught going through people's trash looking for violations. Some people never learn the lesson. 3 years later, my house is still painted the same warm cream. The HOA runs smoothly now. Property values are up. The neighborhood is peaceful. And Karen Whitmore? Last I heard, she'd been evicted again, fired from a grocery store job, and banned from another HOA board for, you guessed it, harassing neighbors about paint colors. Sometimes, justice takes time. But when it finally hits, it hits hard. If Karen ever reads this, I have one thing to say. The paint was always approved. You just couldn't handle being wrong.